What is going on, everybody? I am back. We are about a little more than a month into the season right now, and I'm ready to make some All-Star game picks. We have a few surprises, a couple standout candidates, so let's get right into it. So if you don't know, the All-Star game has a few restrictions on positionally who can actually make the roster, make the cut. They still do the East and West thing, and then from that pool of East and West players, 12 from each conference, they have captains who will then pick the starting five of 3 front court players and 2 back court players. And then for the bench, again, you have 3 front court and 2 back court players, and then 2 flex positions that can be anybody in any kind of position. So out of the West back court, to no one's surprise, it should be no one's surprise. Actually, I know one guy it might be a surprise to.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander better be starting in the damn All-Star game this year. I'm saying that right now on your
Shai,
podcast.
you got it. Shai should be in the All-Star. You're saying something nice. It's on record.
Starter.
All-Star starter.
But in the backcourt, we have Luka Doncic and Steph Curry. Big surprise. These guys are both putting up MVP caliber numbers. They're the top 2 scorers in the entire league. Now in the front court, we have LeBron James. Now, even though he's missed a lot of time, even though his numbers aren't exactly, well, his numbers are actually still kind of there, but the Lakers just aren't winning games. He's still LeBron James. He'll probably still end up being the captain. If it's not LeBron, it'll be Steph. We need to keep LeBron in the All-Star game for as long as he's staying in the NBA. I don't care if you disagree. Sharing the front court, we have Anthony Davis, who's been playing like old AD recently after a relatively slow start to the season. Fans frustrated that he's not really taking the reins as that number 1 guy, but he's been showing that he's capable of putting up 32 and 15 on a pretty consistent basis, pretty similar to what we were seeing out of that AD in New Orleans with the Pelicans when he was balling out every single night. He still got it. And then the last position, Nikola Jokic, not a big surprise here either. The Western side of things was probably the easiest part of this video. Jokic is the 2-time reigning MVP. I don't really need to explain why he's in the All-Star game once again. Now, the East is where things get kind of tricky because, like I said, 3 front court, 2 backcourt players. The East has Giannis, Tatum, Embiid, and Durant. All front court players. Theoretically, one of those players is coming off the bench, and all 4 of those guys they deserve to be starting in the All-Star game. If it were up to me, I would slide Tatum to the guard spot, and he can share the backcourt with Donovan Mitchell. Or, if they can't move Tatum to the guard spot and they have to have 2 guards, listen to this. It would be Donovan Mitchell and Tyrese Halliburton. I just put it out there. This kid is 22 years old and leading the league in assists with over 11 per game. The Pacers are doing pretty good. They are not stinking up the joint. They're actually winning games. Tyrese Halliburton is probably the best passer in basketball right now. He's also getting 19, 20 points a game. It's hard to make a case against that guy. The East backcourt is not that deep. You can make a case for Trae Young as well. I wouldn't complain about that as well. It's a guy who's started in an All-Star game before. So if Halliburton is a little too much of a hot take, that would be my pick. But hey, you can go either way on that. So those are the starting lineups. Now let's get into some of the reserves. And before I get to the reserves, just know the nature of an All-Star game. There's 12 spots in each conference. There are going to be snubs. The conferences aren't necessarily balanced. There are just going to be people, probably your favorite player, just going to be left off the list. It's nothing personal. It's just what it is. So out of the West, the reserves are Ja Morant, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Paul George, Zion Williamson, Devin Booker, Damian Lillard, and one other forward spot. We still got one other forward spot. I'm going to turn this one over to you. I'll give you some of the snubs, some of the candidates that we've left out. But keep in mind, we got one more forward spot left in the West, and I want y'all's opinion on this. On to the Eastern Conference Reserve. So I mentioned Trae Young, who could be starting either him or Halliburton. But Trae Young, DeMar DeRozan, Pascal Siakam, Jimmy Butler, Jaylen Brown, and Bradley Beal. So we have some snubs, y'all. We got a lot of snubs. Out of the West, the main snubs that come to mind are Desmond Bane, who's been out recently, but he was playing at an all-star level, getting 24-plus points a game. insane amount of threes at a ridiculous percentage and efficiency. Karl Anthony Towns, who recently went out with a calf strain, he'll probably be out for a few weeks, so I think that'll hurt his case. Lauri Markkanen. When the Jazz were hot, I know the Jazz have cooled down, but if the Jazz had continued on that pace, on that trajectory, it's hard to say that the Jazz don't deserve an all-star. The way that the standings are lining up right now, there's so many teams just around the 500 mark where I'm pretty comfortable in just generally taking about one all-star from all of the top teams. With the exception of one team, if you notice, is the Boston Celtics. They are the best team in the league right now, it seems like, and Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum both deserve to be in the All-Star game. So other snubs out of the West, Jeremy Grant. Don't sleep on him. He's putting together some all-star numbers, and he's sometimes the number one option on that Blazers team. Same thing with Anthony Simons. You can't let Dame, Grant, and Simons on to the all-star game, obviously. You're going to have one, and it just has to be Dame. It's unfortunate. That's just how it is. Also, Brandon Ingram. On the outside looking in. Again, Zion Williamson will probably get the votes over him. Zion is probably a little bit of a better player at this point right now than Ingram. It's unfortunate Ingram is an all-star caliber player, but he's just on the outside looking in here. Anthony Edwards has had some up and downs as well. All-star caliber player. Now on to the East. Some folks that I didn't mention. It was hard. James Harden, man. He's missed a lot of games. He's playing well. He's had some games where he's looked like Houston Harden again. He's actually getting, 22 points and over 10 assists a game, but he's just missed a lot of time. I don't think the Sixers are good enough to have more than one all-star, which, it should go without saying that Tyrese Maxey is also on the outside looking in, even though he's averaging about 23 points a game. He's also been out for a while with a foot fracture. Now, this one is really, really difficult for me to leave out. Darius Garland. Again, it goes back to, the Cavs are good, but are they good enough to have multiple all-stars? Assuming no injuries, by the way, because if there are injuries, obviously that paves the way for a few different folks. That's why Jarrett Allen made the all-star game last year. But Garland is an all-star point guard, but Mitchell has clearly been the number one guy, in my opinion, on that team. Garland would be on the outside looking in, even though he probably deserves it. Other guys, Zach LaVine. Just not better than DeRozan, and he's had some moments. He had that 1-for-14 game where he got benched, and those things, little moments like that matter. Other two snubs out east I'm not all that worried about is DeJounte Murray and Julius Randle. So I left one spot out west because it goes to the person who I think should get the final roster spot, De'Aaron Fox. Get this man in the All-Star game. He's averaging 25 points a game. He's the leader of the Kings team that doesn't suck, and that's good enough to be an All-Star in my book. Let me know all your thoughts and opinions in the comments section. Say hi. Matt, I fixed the spacing on my panels, okay, so leave me alone. I'm sure you found something else in this background that ticks you off, but make sure to drop a comment, and I'll respond to you, and I will see you on the next one.